Welcome to Homebuyer Hotspot. Have you ever thought about owning a rental property, but the idea of late night maintenance calls, tenant issues, and rent collection? Stress, all that stress that makes you hesitate? What if I told you that real estate investing doesn't have to be a second job? Today, I'm sitting down with someone who helps property owners turn rentals into real investments without the headaches. That's the important part. Welcome back to Homebuyer Hotspot, the show where we break down real estate, mortgages, and money strategies so that you can make confident decisions in today's market. I'm your host, Jennifer Fanning, concierge loan officer, mortgage nerd, and your biggest fan when it comes to building wealth through real estate. Today, I am joined by Angelia Ruff from CANI Property Management, a trusted expert in helping landlords protect their investments, maximize cash flow, and create a smooth rental experience for both owners and tenants. Angelia, welcome to the show. I am so excited to have you here. And make sure you tell us how we can connect with you right off the bat here.
Absolutely. So thank you again. Thank you so much for having me here, Jennifer. I'm super excited to be here as well. How to connect with me outside of this call or this venue here. My direct number that anyone can reach me at is 321-594. That goes directly to my cell phone. Is the best way to contact me, or my email address, which is my first name, Angelia, Angeli at CANI PM.
Super simple. And you're not Angela, you're Angelia.
No, I am Angelia. That is correct.
Exactly. So for those of you out there who may not be familiar with CANI Property Management, it's a full service property management company. And today we're going to break down what property managers actually do. I'm excited to learn because I really don't know a lot about what you do. And so why investors need property management companies and how to avoid common rental mistakes. So let's start with the basics that I don't know, that I'm sure a lot of people out there don't know, but a lot of people hear that the word property management, but we don't really understand really what you do. So how does property management work on a day-to-day basis?
I absolutely love this question.
Okay.
And I think it's just as important to talk about what property management is not, just as much as what it is.
Oh, that's probably a good idea.
Yeah, property management sometimes gets confused with property maintenance. Property management is not lawn care.
Okay.
It is not driving by the house every day to check on it.
Okay.
It is not, and it's definitely not just answering the phone when something breaks. At the core, property management is truly communication, risk management, and asset management.
Okay, I like the risk management part. That's kind of cool.
Well, as a money girl, I mean, that makes sense for you.
It does make sense. It totally makes sense for me. Well, and my clients that buy rental properties. So
Right. So on a day-to-day basis, basically, we're the central point of communication between tenants, owners, and vendors, and all the systems that keeps everything moving. That means we're handling tenant questions and concerns. We're coordinating and resolving maintenance issues. We're managing vendor communication and accountability. That's the big part. We're keeping owners informed and protected every step of the way. And we're ensuring that everything is done within compliance with the lease and the law. And some days we're out there marketing properties, listing properties. Other times it might be negotiating renewals. And other days we're just simply solving problems before they become expensive challenges.
that is important.
Right. And behind the scenes, we're still running a business. We're still building relationships with investors and lenders and attorneys and all the people within the community so we can deliver a higher level of service to our owners. So not every day looks the same, but the goal is always the same, which is protect the asset, reduce the risk, and keep the investment performing well.
Okay, so what is the biggest misconception that you've ran across, in people that have either hired you or hired other management companies, and what their expectations were that were wrong, basically?
Right. And then a lot of times that comes down to communication. Sometimes people have a certain expectation, but they didn't communicate that expectation versus what's actually delivered. And I think a lot of the misconceptions come from bad experiences. So whether
Okay.
it's they had a bad experience as a being a tenant themselves, or perhaps they had a
Mhm.
bad experience with another person that had performed property management services for them, either with companies that treat property management as a side hustle as well, that can sometimes be a
Mm.
problem, or managers who are just overwhelmed and are reactive instead of proactive.
Okay.
Professional property management company should always save you more money than it will ever cost you. And that's through
Mhm.
better tenant placement, faster
Yep.
leasing process, reduce vacancy, fewer legal mistakes, because that's been a
That's
hot
good.
this week.
Nobody likes those.
Right. Then just proper maintenance coordination. The numbers will speak for themselves when those things are happening. Another
Awesome.
misconception is that the owners sometimes feel like they lose control. And in
Oh,
reality, good property management just gives owners clarity and structure and not chaos.
I really like that because I know I've done quite a few DSCR loans for investors that have portfolios, and some of them have property managers and some of them do not. And the ones that do not have property managers, I ask them, I'm like, so you manage all the phone calls, the people getting it rented, and they're like, yeah. And I was like, wow.
Mhm.
Wow, how do you go on vacation? How do you go on vacation? Like,
Right, exactly.
yeah.
I
Yeah.
completely agree with that.
So at what point should a landlord consider hiring a property management company? Like, when does it make sense?
Before they buy the property.
Okay.
That may be an unpopular
Okay.
opinion, but honestly, before they buy the property. A professional
Okay.
management company can provide that rental comparative market analysis before purchase. It's going to help
Okay.
the
So
investor.
I need you.
Right. Yeah. It's going to help you know if that's going to cash flow.
And this is a weak area for a lot of real estate agents
Hmm.
because they're typically not in the rental space. And in order to do a DSCR loan, we need to know what the rentability of that property is. And oftentimes the realtors will go out to like Zillow or realtor.com and put in like an address and see what rents kind of seem to be in the area. And then that's their best guess. But
Right.
when the appraiser comes and does a rent schedule, they are going to do more in depth. And in order for the DSCR loan to work, we need a 1-to-1 ratio. Whatever your payment is going to be, your rent has to be that or higher.
Right.
So
Right.
you do
And
that? Oh, you're my new best friend.
yes, we do. Yes. We do that. We do that. And I think that's where it really comes like your role specifically. It's
Hmm.
so incredibly important. If they already have a property manager in place, I mean, now they
Hmm.
really know what that expectation is going to look like. And so that financing strategy and that management strategy now
Hmm.
align early. And it's not like, I need it to cash flow X number. And then that number is
Hmm.
not even realistic. That
Yeah.
sets up another bad situation where
Mhm.
expectation is just not going to be able to be met because there was unrealistic data.
And that's what I tell investors all the time, that nothing is a done deal
Mhm.
until we have that rent schedule and know for sure if they're going to Airbnb it and it's a property that's able to do that. I can pull right away an Air DNA report that
Mhm.
will tell me vacancy factor, what the weekly rental rate is, etc., and then I can do my calculations from there. But if it's not going to be a Airbnb situation, we have to wait for the appraiser. And every once in a while, I work with a realtor who's super on the ball and really knows rental numbers. But
Mhm.
I find for the most part, that's not very common.
No, definitely a property
Mhm.
management company that they see those numbers day in and day out. They're already used to properties in that community, know what amenities are going to
Mhm.
make it rent higher as well. Because let's say your investor decides they want to buy this property, but they don't want to allow pets. That's a game changer right there. Because now you're leaving out 70% of your renter pool, and it's a different value for what people are willing to pay for a home.
I agree with that because I think everybody that I know has some sort of pet. And that really does. And, I never thought about that in property rentals, how many people
Right.
you're eliminating. So if I were thinking about buying investment properties and I came to you ahead of time, do I sign a contract with you before I even have a property, or how does that work then?
No, when we are already having an engagement conversation, if you
Hmm.
bring Hey, Angie, I saw this property. I'd really like to see what that's going to look like. Then we'll be there with you every step of the way. Once you have that property in place under contract, you know you're moving forward with it, then we can execute a property management agreement with us. But at that point, you'll already know your expenses from us because we're
Mhm.
flat fee as well, and be able to really know whether it's going to cash flow from the get go.
Awesome. So what you're saying is that people don't need to be big investors, big portfolios of rental properties in order for you to work with them, correct?
Absolutely not. We are not just for big investors. We work with
Okay.
many owners who
Okay.
have just one rental, including first time or accidental investors. I think that's the more common is the accidental investor, whether it's
Yeah.
a parent passed and they
Mhm.
have this home, or they're in a really good position with their mortgage and they're going to buy a new home to move to and they want to take their existing home and turn that into a rental. We're seeing a lot of that more frequently now as
I'm
well.
sure that you are because those low 2.75, 3% interest rate properties,
Mhm.
people know in their minds they're never going to see that again. And if they bought at a good time, put good money down, they have super low payments and the rents definitely would exceed, what those monthly payments are. So I agree that we are seeing more people because I've ran into quite a few applications that that's exactly what they were going to do. Do you work with out of state owners? And if you do, how does that work?
Oh, I've got the most exciting story to share with you on this one. So
Yay.
the answer is yes, all the time.
Okay.
Recently, we had an owner who was out of state in New Jersey and they closed
Okay.
on a property in December 26th. How did they pick that property? One of their friends were already investing in the same neighborhood.
Okay.
So, because they were out of state, they did the closing online, everything. We picked up the keys locally for them from their title agency. We on the 30th. So this was all December. So December 26th, they closed. December 30th, I picked up the keys. December 31st, we were installing ceiling fans, doing all of the
Wow.
walkthroughs, doing the photo, the video walkthrough for the digital
Mm.
walkthrough as well. We had the property listed on January 1st on the MLS and over the 3,000 syndication sites that we use as well. Had showings that afternoon and a
Wow.
lease signed by January 5th, and the tenants moved in on January 10th. Like, that is not typical, but it definitely shows that it's possible with the right systems, even when the owner is out of state. So
I love that.
we support those out of state folks received their washer and dryer and refrigerator for them. And they didn't have anyone boots on the
Right.
ground, but because they had the property management company locked in before they even closed, they
Mhm.
didn't have to worry about it.
Yeah, and that's huge. That is super huge when you're buying from out of state. You've got somebody that's operating in your best interest. Did you walk through the property prior to them buying or no, you waited?
We walked through with their realtor. We did. So that
Okay.
way we already had full visibility of what was going on with the
Awesome.
property. Yes, we did that with
Any
their realtor.
repairs that would need to be made, you guys knew up front
It
and
was
could
fortunately, it was
advise.
new build, so we were lucky with that one, but yes, we've done that as well when there has to be a lot of
Yeah.
times we'll even bring us in to tell them what they need to do to bring it rent ready, and we'll give
Mhm.
the investor kind of a ABC list, like, "This is what you absolutely have to do to be compliant. These are some would nice to be have, things, or these are some things you should plan for the future to elevate your rental income for the property."
So, what I'm hearing is every realtor within your area should be working with you if they have clients that want to buy investment properties or rent out their current residence to move to another residence because what you're offering is huge value. That's huge value for somebody to come in and say, okay, according to compliance, you need this and this. You don't have GFCI breakers in the kitchen, whatever it is. You'll get more rent if you add this or take away that. That's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge because I think most people have no idea of any of that information.
Right, we could be their absolute secret
Mhm.
superpower for them, and they don't
Yes.
even realize it. And the beautiful thing, because we only focus on property management, we're not doing the buying and selling side, we're not
Yep.
competition.
Correct.
When we make them look good with property
Mhm.
management, and now that owner, in much like the New Jersey owner that I just gave you the
Yep.
example, he's already ready to buy a second home. He was like, "This is
That's
so
awesome.
good. Let's do this again." So
I
if we work in collaboration,
Mhm.
I think it really could go far for realtors that can see this type of benefit.
I 100% agree. So, one of the biggest fears that I hear people who are first time investors, or maybe they have one property, but they're not sure about investing in a new area, their biggest fear is getting someone in that house that's either not going to pay or going to trash the house. So, what do you do? How do you screen tenants, future tenants, in order to protect that investment for the homeowner?
Excellent question. Our screening process goes far beyond a credit score. We do, of course, the general credit check. We do a criminal background check. We do an eviction history check. We do pet screening.
Huh.
And then we do an income and asset verification because pretty much anyone has access to ChatGPT and can whip up some bank statements and can whip up some pay stubs. But the crazy thing is that with how easily those documents can be falsified, we also have the ability just as easily to pick through those with our fine tooth comb and all of our software to be able to make sure that we're looking at valid data. We look at the full picture. While credit score isn't a hard stop. For example, we had a physician who was going through a divorce. Credit
Mhm.
score tanked, but he had the money in the
Happens.
to be able to pay the whole year in advance. Of course, context matters there.
Mhm.
But at the
Mhm.
same time, we're also protecting the tenant. And that's where I think perhaps sometimes future tenants or applicants just think we're the big bad guys and we just don't want them to get the home. But at the end of the day, we want them in a home that they can afford and that they're not stressing to make the rent. We would never want to see anyone lose their home for any reason. And it's our fiduciary duty to always protect the owner and be responsible in screening everyone.
I love that. So, what are the red flags? What are things that you've seen in the past that you're like, something smells fishy about that?
Say number one that pops in my head is pay stubs. A lot of times people will falsify those. You've probably seen it too. And that year to date doesn't match up to what they're saying they're making. That would be number one. Funds in the bank don't match stated income.
Yep.
That was just not tracking on the bank statements, whatever the case may be in that respect. Sometimes there's money hidden that they're putting it in another account and they just don't
Yeah.
want to disclose it. I'm
Yeah.
like, that hurts you, not helps you. We're not here to get in your business. I don't care if you ordered DoorDash or Grubhub 20 times
Right.
this month. We really don't care. So,
Oh,
my
I've
one
seen
check.
worse. I've seen worse than DoorDash and Grubhub on bank statements.
Right. Yeah, and another thing would be when a rent increase is clearly they can't afford it. So let's say
Mhm.
they're already paying $1,800 a month, and at the end of the month they have $1.90 in their checking
Yeah.
account, and they're trying to go for a home that's $2,400 a month. That's a challenge. A
Mhm.
huge red flag is utility defaults. Most people will
Right.
always pay their power bill.
Right.
Right? That and internet. That's like the two things people
Yeah. The
can't live
two things
without.
you have to have.
Right. So if on their credit report it shows utility defaults
Mhm.
or if the eviction check shows prior evictions, those are huge red flags where this is really where professional screening reduces that turnover because it removes emotion from the process. Not like, I
I,
met them,
I
they're so sweet, their kids are so cute. Yeah, but they've been evicted 3 times. That's a no-go. Gotta stop there.
agree. I have a friend in Washington State who has a rental property, and she's done a really good job over the years making sure she has good tenants. But all she looks at is the credit score. And she's
Mm.
been very fortunate, that she's had people in there that have been pretty decent, but there's been a couple different times as she was going through the process to get new people in there that
Mhm.
she's like, I don't know. They seem really nice, but the credit score is not quite there. So if she had somebody like you, I think that would have taken the worry, out of it for her. And because of that worry, now she's in the process. She wants to get rid of that property. She's tired of managing it herself and it's too much. So, how does your professional screening, all the things that you do, how does that help reduce vacancy and turnover in the properties?
Well, on the vacancy and turnover piece, we do a few things here. So let's say a tenant's already in place, right? And is we look at the renewals 90 days in advance.
Okay.
So we already know, does the owner want to keep this property? Because in some instances, they may want to sell the property, turn that money into another investment. We're seeing
Mhm.
that with some investors that are wanting to get into multifamily or syndications. Another piece would be, was this tenant a great tenant? Do we want to renew it? We give our professional opinion whether we think this is a renter. And it also gives
Okay.
us an opportunity to review that pricing methodology. Like, can we get more for the property? Is it at a really good spot here to be able to make that happen? If that's a green light and we're going to go ahead and renew with this tenant, then at the 60-day mark, we're having the negotiations with the tenant. They even may come back and say, hey, can you please get us a new washer and dryer? Can you upgrade something in there? And then it's a little back and forth negotiation. But at the end of the day, we keep the tenant happy, we keep the owner happy, and we keep it going. Now, let's say in the event that for whatever reason, whether it's the tenant doesn't want to renew because maybe they're going to buy a home, or perhaps it's another situation where it wasn't a good fit. In that case, then we are very proactive to go ahead and put the property on the market. Generally, we have a 10-day window between turns. We help the owner manage that rent ready turn to get everything prepared and ready for the next tenant. And we're doing those occupied scheduled showings, of course, with out of respect for the current tenant so that the owner sees as little vacancy as possible. And then, I mentioned the income boosting upgrades. If it's someone that's home, it's already vacant, what we do there to try to get it rented as quickly as possible. And again,
Yeah.
I say this with all the empathy in the world. I know people have their numbers they need to hit, but if it's a market where it's just not going to command that price, it will sit longer and they'll lose month after month after month income just trying to wait for an extra $100 on their rent.
Correct. That's why in the mortgage industry, if I'm doing a traditional loan, like a conventional loan product, not DSCR or an investor loan, we actually do a 25% vacancy factor on the rents each year, especially if you don't have a management company. Because
Right.
we know reality is that you'll have a year contract. But then if you don't have a management company, somebody will move out. You got to go in, repaint, revamp, do all the things, have all your vendors. And that
Mhm.
can take a month or so for all that to happen.
We've seen it take as long as 3 months when the
Mhm.
owner doesn't
Mhm.
want us to handle that, when they wanna
Yeah.
handle it themselves. And it's
Mhm.
unfortunate because they're missing out on rental income. So,
Mhm.
we keep the ball rolling, we keep it moving, and, we do a biweekly review on anything that is vacant because sometimes there's market shifts, sometimes there's someone else that desperately needs their property rent, and they'll
Yeah.
drop that price super fast just to be able to get a renter in, but then everyone wiggles a little bit. So we're
Yeah.
giving those biweekly updates to the owner. We do other things where we partner with a company called Obligo. It's a company that creates a surety bond in lieu of a
Cool.
security deposit. And
Huh.
let me tell you, it pays out in 7 days when we do a claim on deposit at the end of a term lease.
That is
So,
okay. So that helps everybody then. So that's helping the person who's renting need less cash up front
correct.
and helping the landlord because then it's like guaranteed that things will get
Right, they're
taken
going
care of
that
and there'll
right,
be
with the
money.
security deposit, everything would be handled. But yeah, so that's another option that we offer. There's a lot of other tools in our tool belt, just depending on the property, the location, all the normal things within real estate.
Right, right, absolutely. This is really fascinating. I had no idea that some of this stuff could happen. I'm so glad that we're chatting. So, another big issue that I hear about from investors that own investment properties is maintenance and emergency calls. So, obviously, that would be my first reason why I would hire you because I wouldn't want the call at 3 a.m. So, how do you handle that as a company? What does that look like?
Right. Well, the best thing to say on the maintenance thing is that we manage to the lease,
Mhm.
obviously, and to the property
Okay.
management agreement. So the conversations of how all of that is going to happen have happened with the owner well in advance. So they
Okay.
have a set expectation of how that's going to happen.
Okay.
In the maintenance world, we utilize AI actively to
Okay.
support our maintenance function. So in
Okay. So
every
how does that work? So you use AI to
yeah,
support maintenance?
yes,
Okay, talk to me about that because 'cause you're kinda blowing my mind.
it is built into our software. Let's say a
Okay.
tenant places a work order and it's a non-emergency, okay? And
Okay.
actually, it even has, based on the type of work order that's placed in, what level of urgency that it is.
Okay.
And so, garbage disposal versus leak under the sink, right? That's
Mhm.
two different types of situations there. They immediately try to troubleshoot with through the AI, including videos and all of the things,
Oh,
and gathers all the information within minutes of the moment that the work order is put in. They're not having to wait for someone to call them back. They're not having to wait for someone to pick up the phone. Happening. Then the next step
wow.
is we have already vetted multiple vendors in our system. And if it needs to go to the next step where it needs to be assigned to a maintenance vendor, the work order is already sent to the owner for notification, and it's already
Awesome.
sent to the vendor to request a quote. So then
Wow.
that step's all handling. The vendor then can have direct communication with the tenant in the portal. So no one
Mhm.
has each other's numbers. It's all happening securely and we can see everything that's happening. So it's not the tenant saying, oh, well, the vendor said this. Nope, we can see it all. It all happens there.
Wow.
And the process just moves forward like that.
So really you using AI is protecting your landlords and it's protecting the tenant because there's a recorded of everything that's being said. Huh.
Correct. Correct. We love this functionality. It's something we implemented last year, and I mean, it's definitely been a game changer. It's helped us tremendously to be able to respond
Yeah.
faster. So, going back to your question, how do we handle that maintenance and emergency thing? That's all the generic maintenance stuff. That's kind of how that works, right? Now,
Okay.
let's say it's an emergency. We have people that answer the phone all the time. Like, and we're not
Okay.
maybe not answering at 2 in the morning, but
Yeah.
we have someone that's answering calls 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock at night,
Okay.
and we escalate
Mm.
those things. If someone doesn't pick up, voicemails are checked within 1 to 2 hours, and the calls are being happened. We had one weekend where we had 3 water heater problems in one weekend, and
My.
all of
Oh
them were
my.
by Monday, all three.
Wow. Good. That's
So
awesome.
yes. As at the end of the day, it's our responsibility to the owner, but it's the
Mhm.
best way to protect the owner's asset is just by running a process for everything, and it keeps it predictable for the tenants as well.
Well, and then you have tenants that want to stay. You don't have tenants that are trying to get out because the whole rental process from that landlord was so awful that nobody ever did anything. The house is falling in, and there's all kinds of repairs that need to be made and nobody's paying attention. So that's good. I mean, because then both sides really are happy. So do owners have a say in repair limits or vendor selection? How does that work? Like if I'm an owner and I'm in Europe for the summer and the AC in my rental property goes, how does that work on that side?
Right. Well, first of all, owners always have the absolute reason to say anything with some guardrails. Let me just put that in with some guardrails. So they're allowed to have a say in the vendor choice. Some owners say, "Hey, this is my trusted plumber. This is my trusted
Mhm.
handyman," and we address that up front in our property management agreement. If an
Okay.
owner has those preferred vendors and that they trust, we're happy to work with them. With the one caveat, and this is an important one, it's responsiveness. We have a reputation to uphold with tenants, and if delayed repairs create a risk, then we're going to go back to the owner and go, "We tried your preferred vendor. He's not responsive within a reasonable time frame." We will go back to them and have a very honest conversation about utilizing a different vendor.
Okay.
So that would be the first point with that, as far as can do they have say in that. The second point is from an authority standpoint, our property management agreement allows us to make a decision up to $500 without the owner approval. However, with a true emergency situation, let's say it's life safety or it's preventing incredible damage to the home or protecting the integrity of the home, then we are allowed to make emergency situations to stabilize the home and the life safety of the tenants inside.
Good. Good.
That would be the caveat there. With all that being said, we just don't arbitrarily say, "Oh, we got $500 limit, let's make it happen." No,
Willy-nilly.
no, we don't do that. I mean, one thing that really sets us apart is our transparency. We do not mark up invoices for any of those items. We give them a copy of the invoice we receive, and the
Awesome.
only time where we charge a fee is if we're doing a project that exceeds $1,000 and it's going to require our active coordination. And then we just
Okay.
do a small percentage on top of that. But We have really worked hard to vet our vendors to pass on any discounts where they'll say, "Oh, we give discounts to property managers." Okay, well, you're giving that discount to our owner now. And
Right.
that's just been something that we feel very just it's just part of our who we are. Like it's our
Mhm.
integrity on the line that we do that and we pass that along to the homeowner.
Right. Awesome. So let's talk about money because ultimately, people who own rental properties, that's kind of the name of the game is that they want their property to perform and make them money. And then you guys are also in the business to make money. So what you're doing is not free either. So how do you determine the right rental price? I mean, because you have to see this all the time. I see it all the time just on the buying side of people. This property, it's listed for 400,000. I wouldn't pay more than 300,000 for this, because of course, when people are buying something, they think it's worth less, but when they own something, they think it's worth more.
Well,
So
sure.
how do you help that?
Excellent question there. So let me first start by saying we charge flat fee.
Okay.
So our percentage that we earn, because we don't do percentage, isn't
Mhm.
impacted on the rental price.
Awesome.
And I
Okay.
say that because I am certain that some property managers that do it by percentage, they may want that rental to go for 2,500 because they're going to make 10% versus if it was a flat fee. So
Yeah.
we do flat fee for two reasons. One, transparency. We know what our costs are per company, per property, per owner, those types of things. And then it also gives the owner a clear picture of what their expenses are going to be upfront. There's no guesswork, right? It's not like I
Okay.
hope it rents for this kind of situation. So
Yeah, but I see a lot of that.
we determine rental pricing through a detailed rental comparative market analysis. We use
Okay.
MLS data. We compare properties based on size, age, location, lot size, fencing, pet allowance, and
Mhm.
overall condition, because all of those factors will impact rent. And let me also state that that is with single family long term rentals. It's a
Okay.
different thing with short term. Short term is going to come
Mhm.
back to theme and decor and so much more
Mhm.
on the amenity side than it would for a single family long-term rental.
Okay.
But, and that can also impact your air DNA numbers as well, so keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's good to
Right.
know.
So we don't just price it once and hope for the best. We review that pricing every 2 weeks and while the
Okay.
property is on the market. And then we just make sure that if there's any challenges, changes, things like that, we're having those honest conversations with the owner to keep it going in the right direction. We also do use some of the newer AI tools that are available out there to validate our data. We don't
Okay.
use it as that's our only source of the data, but we utilize it to validate the data because experience does matter. Time of
Mhm.
year matters, pricing,
Especially
marketing,
in Florida.
all of those
Mhm.
things. Yes. I mean,
Mhm.
time of year could just even be related to when school gets out.
Yeah.
What's the inventory like at a certain time of the year versus
Mhm.
when, it's possibly in January. So all of those things together work to get the best rent and not just necessarily the fastest tenant.
Okay. So what are some simple upgrades or strategies that increase rental income? So if I'm a landlord and I'm wanting to like maximize what I have, what are some things that you would generically suggest that always will increase that rent?
Ceiling fans.
Really?
Probably seems yes, probably seems like, "What are you talking
Yeah, I
about?"
did not expect
Ceiling
ceiling
fans.
fans.
Ceiling fans, ceiling fans, ceiling fans. People, when they go to tour the property at the ceiling fans on, they're like, "Oh, it's moving the air in the home. It doesn't feel stagnant. It feels
Mhm.
nice. It gives a different presentation in the pictures. It looks like it's a finished home." Surprisingly, you would find that you would think most homes would have towel bars and other hardware. Guess what?
Mhm.
They don't. So that would be another piece. I recently walked into a home where it was rent ready, according to the owner, and they did not use the same sheen of paint when they went back and did the patch touch up. So having consistent paint and clean finishes,
Mhm.
fencing for pet friendly homes, that is
Mhm.
actually bigger than you would think.
I'm
And
sure.
then simple appliances like a washer, dryer, refrigerator. Renters aren't necessarily expecting luxury, but they are expecting a livable, clean, and cared for home. And the
I
property
agree.
should look like somewhere you would want to live and not
Mhm.
like you're embarrassed and like, oh my God, I got to get a painter in here next week before my mother-in-law
Right.
comes. So, but just to quickly touch back on that short term that we were talking about
Mm.
earlier, that theme
Mhm.
100%.
That that's so interesting. So are you talking short term, like the people that are snowbirds and come down and rent for a month or 3, or are we talking short term of Airbnbs or both?
I would say a little bit of both, more so
Okay.
on the Airbnb. That's where it feels like it's a destination. It's going to
Yes.
perform. If you're in the market where you have those homes, let's say like even St. Augustine, it needs to be a
Mhm.
beachy theme. It really
Yeah.
does. Or if it's like,
Mhm.
say, down in Davenport where it's near Disney, you
Mhm.
need to have characters throughout, big murals, all the
Right.
fluffy pillows that look like Mickey or Shrek, depending on if it's Universal or Disney theme. Those
Right,
kind.
right.
If it feels like leftover furniture and shortcuts, then it's just not. It's going to impact your reviews. You're not
Okay.
going to have as much occupancy and
Oof.
overall you've spent money that's not performing.
Huh. That's I never would have thought about that, but now that you say it, it makes a lot of sense because I know when I've looked at short-term rentals in different areas, I'll
Mhm.
scroll past something that doesn't seem like it
You're like, "Oh,
matches the area.
right."
If it
It
looks like
doesn't
New
have
England and I'm at the beach,
right.
like you said, you want a few seashells here and there or
Yeah.
that's very interesting. Okay, so something that a lot of first-time investors don't really think about is legal issues and the law. So how do you help owners stay compliant with laws and regulations? Because I'm feeling like this is something that a lot of people don't even know much about.
Right. Well, let me first state my disclaimer. We are very clear that we are not attorneys. We don't even
Yeah.
play them on TV. We do work closely with the top landlord tenant law firm in Florida, Heiss Weiss and
Okay.
Wolk. Anyone that's in the property management world will know that name. Every lease that we execute is drafted by their firm. We
Okay.
have some landlords that come in and say, "Let's use our lease," and we're like, "Let's don't,"
Yeah.
because the Heiss Weiss and Wolk lease it ensures compliant with every current Florida statute and local regulations. Laws are changing constantly, and using outdated leases is the fastest way landlords get in trouble. And then we also are sure that we continue our education where we go and we attend ongoing legal training classes and updates provided by our attorneys. And we stay very closely informed on any legislative changes that are coming out of Tallahassee or local municipalities. So the other pieces to that would be proper notice procedures, when to file that 3-day notice, when to file a 7-day notice, the correct handling of a security deposit. I can't tell you how many self-managing landlords spend the security deposit. You can't do that. You can't
Correct.
do that. Not until
Correct.
they're
Is it supposed to be in escrow, like a separate escrow account held by a
yes.
lawyer? Yeah, that's what I would assume.
Yeah. So my partner that co-owns the business with us, he's our broker. So we have it in the escrow account, all the security deposits. And then it's just documentation standards, making sure that everything is documented, and then fair housing compliance. It goes back to those shortcuts. I
Yeah.
don't need a smoke detector or CO detector there. Yes, you do. Those are the kind of things.
That thing kept on going off in the house, so I just disabled it for my people.
Right, right, right. So really, again, the improper handling of the security deposits. Florida has very specific rules about how deposits are held and how it's returned. And getting this wrong can cost landlords triple the damage. There's even like illegal self-help actions like changing the locks or shutting off utilities or entering
Huh.
without notice when the rent's not paid.
Wow.
All of that stuff can really completely flip a case against an owner, and I've seen it happen. And then of course
Ouch.
those pulling a lease from Google. Google can be your friend, but not always. And
Not
please
always.
use legal chat GPT because once again, I've seen even agents get in trouble with performing legal services without a law license. So it's so
Wow.
many of those, do it yourself legal mistakes. They're not even malicious in intent, but they're so expensive misunderstandings.
So what do you think the most common legal mistake is that you see DIY landlords make? Like, is it in the lease agreement or? Where are they making the biggest mistakes, do you think?
Right. It's normally in the security deposit handling. That
Okay.
really is, I would say, the bigger of if I had to pick one of those 3 that I shared between the illegal actions and the lease part, it would definitely be the handling the security deposit. That's one of the biggest challenges.
Okay. All right. That's
Mhm.
that's so interesting because I'm thinking, I mean, we've rented a few times here and there in our lives. Like when we came down to Florida, we weren't sure where we wanted to live. So we rented for a year just to make sure, and those are a lot of things that I wasn't even thinking about, that happens. So, okay, let's talk about CANI Property Management
So let
and
me correct
how.
you. It's Kenai.
Oh, CANI. I'm sorry.
No, it's
Okay.
okay. It's all right. It's okay. So we get
Okay,
both
so
sometimes. Yeah,
canaille, so I'll give
Kenai,
it like
right?
a French
Right.
sound. I don't know, is that French
Yeah,
sounding? I don't know.
Kenai.
But so what sets canaille property management apart from other companies? Why would I choose you over someone else? Why should I anyways?
Right. Why should you? That's always the
Yeah.
question, right?
Mhm.
Everybody wants to know the why behind it. So, I mean, again, everyone can have experience, right? You've
Mhm.
got landlord or, got property management companies that have had 20, 30, 40 years experience.
Correct.
Anyone can say they've had the education. Anyone can say that they manage this many properties, but no one can say what we say. Our name is not just 4 letters put together, can I? It's constant and never ending improvement is what that stands for.
Look
And
at that.
it is how we live, how we operate our business, and it is the why, because not everything is going to be perfect, but we can constantly improve. And it's never ending improvement. We're always looking for how can we do this better? How can we serve our clients better? How can we perform for the tenants better? How can we be better in our communities? And with that being said, to me, real estate should not be stressful. My
Agreed.
goal for every real estate investor, whether it's their first time, an accidental time, or their 100th
Accidental.
time, is to be calm, help them cash flow, and communicate. And
That's
those
awesome.
things are why people should choose CANI Property Management over managing it themselves. Let's get the chaos out, right? No more chaos. Let's create that
Agreed.
and let's help them cash flow in a way perhaps they've never thought they could before. And let's communicate when it matters, not when there's just a problem.
Agreed. So I know obviously you work with a big variety of clients. But do you have a favorite kind of client that like when you see this person, come across an email, you're like, "Oh, that's my favorite kind of client."
I honestly love the clients that have a sense of humor to me. So, I mean, that may
Okay.
not be like the best description because the ones I'm thinking of, each of them are a little different. Like they all come from different backgrounds. They all became investors for different
Mm.
reasons, but
Mhm.
they don't look as the problems. They look at it like what we do. Like how can we be proactive to where this never happens again? Like, yeah, okay, that's not the worst thing that's happened, those kind of things. So they
Right.
take such an approach where it's not accusational, it's collaborative, and they
Mhm.
understand that we're acting in their best interest and there's no adversarial pieces to it. And when they're willing to at the end of whatever situation it is, laugh and understand, then it's so good. I really enjoy it when I have those. And let's say we have a situation. Christmas time is always interesting because you understand who overspent at Christmas and who doesn't pay their January rent. So I was very proactive with some of my tenants and going, hey, make sure you get your payment in case you get. And then as soon
Yeah.
as the late day came and we issued the late fees, I went to those owners and I said, here's where we're at. Here's the communication we've had. Here's how the resolution is going to go. And
Mhm.
being able to have those conversations and have a phone call going, wow, thank you so much for that. I was a little worried, but you just made this kind of thing. And then we joked
Easier.
about, well, it sounds like Timmy got too much for Christmas this year. It's those kind of
Right.
things. It just makes it
Mhm.
easier. And I enjoy it
Mhm.
so much. It doesn't matter again how they became the investor. We worked with this one young man recently. Unfortunately, his mom passed away and his
Aw.
brothers own the property now. And they want to turn it into a rental and it's going to require a lot of work to get there, but it's just been so great because he's just got a great attitude. And, we
Good.
walk in and go, "What was your mom thinking about that wallpaper?" But we can have those kind of conversations where it's not offensive and it's just being, it's partners in achieving their goal. At the end of the day, we're here to help them achieve their goal.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap all of this up, what should landlords in 2026 focus on this year to protect and grow their investments? What would you say is the number one thing?
To focus on, if they're going to focus on
Yeah,
something.
like what's one thing that you would say out there in internet world to the landlords that they should focus on this year with their properties?
Right. If they're okay,
Yeah.
so if they're going to focus on something this year, I would say take a moment to look at your asset.
Okay.
Is it the best performing asset that you have? And if it's not, what are small improvements that you can
Mm,
do to make it where it's going to rent better? So this would be the individual that already has a property. They're taking a look at it, get some professional opinions, have some property managers walk through with you or others that are in the rehabilitation
mm,
space, whether it's a general contractor or something like that, where they can see the little small things that are going to elevate the home to stand out from the next house down the street. And I think
awesome.
if landlords look at that proactively rather than reactively, now they're going to be able to have strategy that's aligned, properties that perform, and then the owners are going to be able to sleep faster and grow their portfolios faster. And of
That's good.
course, I'm always here to help with that too.
So, can you tell me like what your area is? So, for the people that are listening to this, what's the
Mhm.
area that you guys service?
So we cover 15 counties in the greater Central Florida
Yeah.
area. So up from Flagler all the way down to Brevard, every county that touches I-4. We're going down to Hardy County and Wauchula up to Ocala.
Okay.
And then, of course, all of the West Coast. So Tampa, St. Sarasota, Newport Richey, all of those. So we have a vast area that we cover. Short term, we don't cover quite that big, but for long
Okay.
term single family homes, it's our jam. We do really well in
Awesome.
those areas.
I love that. All right. So, tell my listeners how they can get a hold of you again so that
Yes.
now that they've heard all this great information, now they need to call you.
Right. Now they need to call. Right.
Hmm.
Exactly. So the phone
Hmm.
number again, 1-594-4765. I am a fierce texter too for the people that don't like to call on the phone. You can
That's the
also
younger generation. They might have rental properties.
hey, that's all right. That's okay. Hey, I've met a 20-year-old that has 3 duplexes.
Wow.
It can
That's
happen at
awesome.
any time, right? Can happen at any time. That's why I said I have no judgment. It's all good
Mhm.
there. And the email address is Angelia, Angelia at CANIPM.com. So CANIPM.com. And our website is CANIPM.com. Our pricing is on the website. Again, full
Love
transparency
that.
here. That's how we operate and happy to help with anyone that has questions, whether they're a realtor, an investor, or someone that's just curious about the process.
Awesome. And if you're somebody out there thinking about purchasing your first or 21st rental property, I would love to help you with that. I have a variety of investor only loan types that have very competitive interest rates, which is kind of amazing, and that go off of the rentability of the property, not your own personal income for that debt to income ratio. So if you want more information about that loan type or how to start investing from the financial side, give me a call at 561-295-2005. You can also find me at my website at jfanningmortgage.com. It was super great seeing everybody today, and make sure that you subscribe, that you leave a comment, and that you share this episode with friends and family. Yeah, give us a thumbs up.
Yeah.
And that you share this with friends and family who are thinking about becoming landlords. There's lots of people who want to be landlords and don't know where to start. But until next time, stay smart, stay informed, and keep building your future.